So as I've mentioned in a few previous videos now, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which came out in December, is made by Massive Entertainment, the same studio that is making Star Wars Outlaws. The map in Avatar was absolutely unreal, and today I wanted to kind of take a look at that map and explain why that should get you guys very excited for what each planet could look like in Star Wars Outlaws. Now, the first thing that is worth mentioning is that the map was absolutely stunning. It is potentially the best looking map that I think I've ever played in any games, and keep in mind, I've played a lot of open world RPG type of games in the past with huge maps, and like I said, I think this is potentially the best looking one that I've ever played on. The map was super vibrant, it was very colorful, the graphics were absolutely insane, and keep in mind, the Snowdrop engine they used for that game is actually the same one they're using for Outlaws. On top of the graphics, it was also very immersive and like really dense and full of life and stuff like that. There was wildlife everywhere, there were a lot of NPCs, mostly around the, I guess, the main regions of the map, for example, not out so much in the wilderness, but there definitely were a lot of NPCs around the place. There were lots of secrets and things to explore, and overall the map just had a hell of a lot going on. Now, in terms of the size of the map, something to keep in mind is that it was probably around nearly twice the size of the GTA map. I'm sure most of you guys have played GTA or at least seen the map anyway, and so I'm sure you know how big that map is, and this one was borderline twice the size of it. So not only was it very dense, but it was also massive. It's not like it was a small and dense map, it was a freaking huge map that was also somehow dense at the same time. Now, from the 10 or so minutes of Outlaws that we've seen, it does look also very alive and very immersive too. Even just the moment where Kay kind of gets into that first little town that we visit, the stuff like the wind and just the density of the cantina, you can see when she's walking into the cantina, there's like 7 or 8 NPCs just kind of standing around, talking to each other and looking like they may offer quests and stuff like that. It looked very alive to me. The planet definitely looked lived in, and then also, like I said, just even the wind blowing dust all over the place. There are a lot of maps out there that are very nice looking, but they don't feel as though it's actually a real planet, for example. However, from what we saw from Outlaws, it definitely did not look that way. Now, I slightly touched on the size of the map, but also with that came a heap of side content as well incorporated into the map, which added a lot of replayability and essentially just extended the lifespan of the game. The actual main path probably only took maybe 15 or so hours, but I probably clocked up 35 or so hours playing Avatar, and there's still a heap of stuff that I haven't even done. So the size of the game is definitely very exciting. In that map, you couldn't go more than, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes without seeing something new and exciting, something that essentially seemed as though it was worth checking out. And there were a lot of times when I was on the way to do a mission, for example, and I would just see something cool, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to delay the mission for 5 minutes and we're going to go just explore what the hell this thing is. Sometimes you would get rewards, sometimes you just get a really cool view to look at, for example, but there were just a lot of, you know, different things throughout the map that really did draw your attention, and for the most part, all of them were generally worth getting your attention in the first place. Now, before we go any further, guys, I wanted to give you a quick but exciting announcement. I've actually overhauled my Patreon, and there is now a free tier on the Patreon. Yes, free Patreon, while still giving you some of the awesome bonuses that we do have over there on the Patreon. Signing up for free will give you access to my private Discord channel. You'll also get the power to vote on the content that you get to see here on the channel, having an actual say in all of the content that goes up, not only on this channel, but my other channels as well. And most excitingly, I'm going to be doing a heap of giveaways throughout this year, giving away stuff like the new merch, for example. There's going to be new merch drops every 2 months or so, giving away some games throughout the year, and all of those giveaways are going to be done through the Patreon. All you need to do is click this button that says join for free. There's no catch to it at all. You're not going to get spammed with emails or anything like that. It is literally just a free tier to the Patreon for those who aren't interested in paying. And by doing so, you're going to be more involved in the community and also get some chances to win giveaways, vote on the content you want to see, and even get access to the private Discord channel, like I said. So be sure to head to the Patreon link down in the description, click that button that says join for free. But with that being said, let's get stuck back into the video. Now, speaking of, you know, exploring the map and having a lot of side content, one of the most interesting parts of the map in Avatar were the RDA outposts that were essentially just enemy bases that you could kind of infiltrate. You could take out the enemies and then complete a few quick objectives depending on what type of outpost it was. And then the base would be essentially taken over and the wildlife would return, which not only was very fun to do, it was a fun gameplay element, but it also did add to the story too. It's not like there was just a bunch of outposts that you take out and then it doesn't actually add anything anything of value, this really did add to the story, and that is very exciting to see. Now, how that could relate to something similar in Outlaws, for example, is that they could have similar sort of outposts like that, where it's maybe in the form of places that you can rob rather than save, for example, because obviously in Avatar, you were the good guy. You were trying to save Pandora from the bad guys, whereas in Star Wars Outlaws, technically speaking, we are kind of the bad guys here, or at least, you know, some of the bad guys, because obviously the Empire are also the bad guys. But in this story, Kay Vess is obviously a criminal, so it's not like she's always going to be doing the right thing. Because of that, instead of having outposts where you're doing a good deed, for example, it could be an outpost where this is just something you can go and rob. It could be some sort of little heist, even just as simple as it's another, you know, the Pike Syndicate, for example. We've seen that they're going to be in the game. They may just be a Pike Syndicate little outpost that you can go and raid and try and take out all of those pikes, and then from there there's a bunch of cool loot and stuff to steal, and then from there that could still add to the story, because obviously you're going to get some cool loot and rewards for doing that, but then maybe the Pike Syndicate is, you know, they're going to hunt you down after that, for example. So I do think they could implement something like that into Star Wars Outlaws. It wouldn't be exactly the same as the RDA outpost in Avatar, but having different locations throughout the map that are essentially enemy bases, I think they could definitely turn that into some very fun gameplay. Now, on top of that, the map also had plenty of awesome upgrades scattered throughout it in the form of new weapons, crafting materials, health, and skill point upgrades, for example, and even a separate skill tree that was actually only upgradable by finding certain locations on the map. Now, that has kind of given me the idea that there could be, for example, a similar mechanic in Outlaws, having upgradable weapon parts that can be found hidden throughout each planet in chests, pretty similar to how it was in Jedi Survivor. There could be the same sort of thing for upgrades for ships, maybe even criminal related skills that you can learn by finding different upgrades on the map. For example, you go to an area that kind of needs you to lockpick something. Kay is then forced to learn how to lockpick, and then that opens up the rest of the map to have unlockable areas or unlockable chests that are only gettable with the lockpick skill. It'd also be cool to see some sort of like crafting mechanic in the game too, crafting upgrades for your weapon, maybe pouches to carry more gear, for example, like I mentioned before, upgrades for your ship, and even stuff like Bacta bombs, for example, to heal yourself. Now, if that were to be the case, the maps could then also implement different pickups like different plants, for example, that allow you to kind of craft and upgrade different items. And on top of that, it could give you even more of a reason to go to each planet. For example, one of the items you need to upgrade your Bacta bombs is only available on Tatooine, so you'll need to head back there if you want to upgrade it. And little things like that are going to give us, I guess, all the more reason to go back and visit maybe the other planets that, you know, there might be certain planets we didn't really love and we just wouldn't go back there normally. Having stuff like that that is exclusive to different planets means it is more likely players will return. Overall, though, the map of Pandora in Avatar was an absolutely awesome sign of what we could potentially expect to see in terms of the quality, the just overall immersiveness, and even potentially the size of it too. Obviously, even though it is made by the same studio, it is a different team, and so we can't expect it to be exactly the same or anything like that. Take all of this with a grain of salt. It's not like everything in Avatar is going to be exactly the same in Outlaws or anything like that, but it definitely gave me a lot of confidence in Massive Entertainment, and I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on the game to see whether they can kind of duplicate the success that they had with Avatar. I'm keen to hear whether this had you guys excited for Outlaws or not, especially if you did play Avatar, so be sure to leave your thoughts down below. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.